Hi, I'm Andy Weibel, and welcome to Timely Topics. Today we have a good guest on. We have Papa Njai. He is an instructor of geography and anthropology here at Muskegon Community College, and he's also a coordinator of our international program here at the college. So welcome to the show, Papa.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I want you to say a little bit about yourself, but the goal is to talk about refugees, both in West Michigan and throughout the world. But before we get there and talking about the work you've done with refugees, tell us a little bit of your background, how you got to Muskegon Community College to teach here, and what your path was.
Yeah, and it's a very, not a straight line. And as you always know, we always go to graduate school, trying to think about big issues. And that was probably one of my passions too. Again, what can I do after graduate school? How can I, make a difference in the world? So I went in. My primary goal was really to be an urban planner to fix cities.
Really?
That was my desire. That was what I really wanted to do. And I have a whole degree. My urban regional geography program is all focusing on cities. And after that, now with the situation going on in my country, Sierra Leone, I think you know about Sierra Leone, and I figured out there is something far more than just fixing a city. What is really responsible for all of the problems that we are seeing in sub-Saharan Africa and other parts of the world? And so I decided to say, can I get into another graduate program again that focuses wholly and solely on just social and economic issues or development? And that was my area. So when I finished, I wanted to work anywhere in the world, any international organization that focuses just purely on social and economic issues.
This was your graduate degree?
Yeah, my second graduate degree.
Okay.
So I wanted, my primary goal was really to go for United Nations, UN.
Yeah.
That is the biggest of all.
Sure.
And UNDP, United Nations Development Program, is just huge, big on development issues. So you finish and then you start sending your resumes all over the world and thinking that, okay, someone will call me in New York or somewhere in Africa or somewhere in Latin America or Asia or anywhere. An organization in Grand Rapids called me, and their own job was just resettling refugees.
Okay.
And that is all.
What's the name of this organization?
Then it was called Catholic Human Development Outreach.
Okay.
Mouthful.
Yeah,
CHDO. Now the name has changed to Catholic Charities.
Catholic Charities.
Catholic Charities, West Michigan. Very simple, known around the world, known around the country. And so I picked up this job. It was just an entry-level position. My job was just to coordinate and supervise 3 people, focusing mostly on health-related issues, doing outreach in the community, working with big organizations like the Spectrum and the Health Department, St. Mary's, now part of Mercy, and that was my goal. And then what happened within a year or 2 years, I started moving up, and then my boss retired, and I was bumped up to be the assistant director, and then later my boss moved to another organization again, so they asked me to be the director of the refugee resettlement program. So from just supervising 3 people, I ended up having close to 20 people that I'm overseeing, a multi-million-dollar program, and it changed my life. Yeah, honestly. I thought I'm going to make a difference helping resettle refugees without knowing I'm learning more from these people coming from all parts of the world. Okay, you know the history of refugees. You at least, you've heard about the refugee crisis in Vietnam. You've heard about, of course, the World War II. We studied about this thing, the recent 1990s. You see people from Bosnia, from Liberia, from my country, Sierra Leone, from DRC, and Cubans fleeing the dictatorship in Cuba. And you are seeing the power of resilience. You think these people, some of them are broken. When they come here, they can't do absolutely anything without knowing these are some of the finest people, most hardworking people that have gone through so much in their lives. For you to see these people start from absolutely zero English for a good number of them, and then 4, 5, 6 years later, you see them going through school, holding up to full-time jobs, being contributing members of society. Say, my goodness, I am not giving, but they are giving me. And that is the way I got into the refugee, business. And so I'm doing the, the social work aspect of it, resettling them, bringing them to West Michigan, resettling them. But I'm very much interested in the academic aspect. Who are these people? why are they coming from these many countries? We all know the area, but I want to get the historical reasons behind, the outbreak of wars in Sierra Leone, in Sudan, in Bosnia, and maybe even Vietnam. I was maybe not even born, but, during that time. So I focused more on the academic during my personal time, reading about refugee issues around the world, and then understanding their movement, their journeys from, let's say, Sierra Leone, the Democratic Republic of Congo, or even communist Cuba, out through refugee camps for some of them, and then into West Michigan. So that has been my own personal part-time job, and working with refugees. So doing my full-time job, but passionately, academic aspect was just focusing on refugees, their resettlement, the challenges that they face when they move into their new host countries or host communities.
So then how did you transition
And
into
then,
teaching?
very good question anyway. I was doing teaching part-time. When I was in Kalamazoo, Michigan as graduate assistant, we always teach. And I finished, I was in Grand Rapids, in commuting from Kalamazoo to Grand Rapids, but at the same time I was teaching in Kalamazoo Valley Community College, Kellogg Community College. I said, that is too far. I'm sure there are schools in West Michigan too again. So I contacted a lot of schools, a lot of them, and I sent one to Muskegon. I had no idea how far Muskegon was from Grand Rapids. I'm thinking it's Coopersville. There someone would just hit the highway, it's just around the corner. And trust me, MCC called me.
I see.
I just Googled my way to Muskegon. It became the friendliest campus, wonderful staff. My colleague Diana Casey, the dean was Abacha, Charles Abacha. Abasa was the dean.
Him,
So I said, my goodness, I was thinking GRCC or Aquinas College or maybe GVSU. All of a sudden, I started to move down here. So I gave up all of my assignments in Kalamazoo, and I just focused on Muskegon, MCC, teaching night classes. I always like to be in the classroom. So I work all day with people. That can be stressful. Very stressful.
So you're released.
And then in the evening hours, I'm coming in to talk about things that I'm very passionate about, global issues. And now 6 to 9, 6 to 10 p.m., I say I can do that. And that is the way I managed to get into the classroom. And then
how many
it
years
became better and better and better. And I decided, well, this is good, working with refugees, but teaching is also even better. Even better. You are doing what you like. I love to read. And, so this one gave me a wonderful opportunity to bring in my work from the refugee resettlement now into the classroom. And that is the way I slowly transitioned from.
And how long have you been a full-time instructor?
Let me say, full-time, part-time, close to 10 years now. 9 years as a full-time, and then I was a full-time, part-time for a year before I moved into the part-time contract position.
Yeah, it's gone fast. I couldn't remember how long.
Time flies anyway, but it's the most amazing thing ever.
And you're still involved with refugees?
I still involved. When I left, I said, well, I'm going to do something again, give back to the community. So we are involved in the greater Grand Rapids area. They are volunteering and helping new refugees in the community, mentoring young men and women in the community. So I am still involved in that. Again, in my small little part-time, duties, again, not paid anyway, but I do go out and do a lot of public lectures about refugee issues, helping develop cultural competence, helping organizations know how to work with refugees. Who are these people? What are their needs? What are their challenges? And how can I reach out to them? How can I work with these people, provide services for them? That is my other, small
and I want to hear a little bit about their needs and how to be more culturally competent. First, where are people coming from? You mentioned a few of the places around the world and during different times in history, fairly recent, but where are most people coming from?
It changes from every few years. Right now, the hottest part is Syria. You've heard about that. For the past 4 years or so. We've seen close to 400,000 slaughtered in that area. Millions have left Syria for surrounding nations. And some of them are in Turkey, some of them are in Egypt, some of them moved all the way to Western Europe. And so that is Syria is one of the biggest areas. And then we have Iraq is still there. And then you've heard about Afghanistan for the past 14 years. They've been, sending refugees to all parts of the world. And then we come back to sub-Saharan Africa. We still have those old names like the Sudan and South Sudan is still in the crisis. Eritrea, on and off, still getting a lot of refugees from that area. The DRC, or we call it Democratic Republic of Congo, and maybe some Ethiopians are still coming in, not because of the war, but some of them are coming in to join some of their family members. And Rwanda is now fairly peaceful now, but some might still come in and join their family members. Then you go to South Asia or to Asia, we have Bhutanese. Okay, from Bhutan, some of them were in Nepal, but they were considered almost non-citizens or second-class citizens in that area. Some of them chose to, they have been resettled, brought over to America. We have Burmese refugees, Myanmar. We call them Burmese refugees, and so some of them during the dictatorship in Burma, and some of them left their countries, living in Thailand and some other areas. And these countries did not resettle them or fully integrate them into their own countries. So America opens its own doors again to say, you are welcome to come over here. So these are just a few examples.
Few examples,
few examples of the
spots
around the country, around the world.
Can you say a little bit about the process? I mean, we've heard with the last presidential election that people aren't properly vetted and they're just coming through and potentially harming people in the United States. But it's not a simple process, right?
It is probably one of the most difficult programs that we have out here. They are the most vetted individuals that I probably have ever worked with. And I don't have the long list here, but I'll be happy to show you later on. They go through 10 bureaucracy or departments, including the FBI, DHS, Department of Homeland Security.
10 departments.
10 departments. The names are so complicated, I barely can remember all of them. And imagine these people, you've left your country, let's say the Democratic Republic of Congo, and now you are in Kenya, or you've run from Sudan, South Sudan, you are now in Kenya. To be in a refugee camp is probably one of the worst experiences on the planet. You do not want to be there. Even your enemy, you don't wish your enemy to be in that environment. So it is from there that the State Department, they have their own specialists, they have their own experts that go right down on the ground, interview you face to face multiple times, and different departments are going to interview to see if the stories are all connected together. It is not a 1 month, 2 month, or 3 month process. It takes almost a year to 2 years.
A year to 2 years?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
And if there is a small little discrepancy in your story, everything is cancelled. And so the husband is interviewed separately. Bring in the wife, you are also interviewed again. Let's say if you have adult kids again, they are interviewed. They have to make sure all of these stories. And then you have some interesting fingerprinting, check you across multiple databases. Everybody wants to be safe.
Sure.
I work with refugees. I want to be safe.
Right.
And so I do understand the fear, but America has welcomed refugees forever. This is the history of this country. America is a land of immigrants and refugees. So sometimes people ask me, when did we start bringing refugees to America? I say, since the beginning of this nation. If you look at the Amish over here, they probably escaped from Europe because of religious persecution.
Sure.
So everybody. But if you look at the contemporary definition of who a refugee is, that is, we use the 1951 convention, we call the UN Convention. From then we can say after World War II, we started to see a huge spike in refugees coming in to America. And then in 1980, we adopted the UN Convention's definition of refugees. So we started 1980 again, bringing in a new class of people again, based on the United Nations definition of a refugee. But for America, it's been forever. It's been forever. And so the process is very complicated. It's not just a 1 month, 2 month, hey, there's a problem over there, let's bring Uncle Sam into this area or Joe into this area. It takes for almost 2 years. Sitting in a refugee camp, one of the worst places on the planet.
Sure.
Let me give you an example. Kakuma, which I like to study, is one of the biggest refugee camps on the planet.
Where is that located?
It's in Kenya.
Kenya, okay.
There are 2 camps, Dadaab and Kakuma. In 1992, it was just a temporary settlement for 92,000 refugees or 90,000 refugees. 2016, we have 500,000 refugees in that area.
Wow.
It used to be 600,000 right down to 500,000. So imagine that, bigger than maybe even bigger than Grand Rapids.
Oh, yeah,
people are living in substandard conditions where there is a problem with safety and security. Women cannot go a mile, 2 miles away from their so-called huts without, being physically threatened, sometimes even raped. So you are living in the constant state of what we call in a limbo. You are not in your country of birth. The country that is hosting you is saying, when are you going back?
Right.
You don't know where else you are going, so you are living. Some people have lived in this area from 1992 right up to 2017, they are still sitting
25
in these
years.
refugee camps.
Wow.
You know, if you ask the Burmese refugees again, some of them are in a similar situation again. Dadaab next door, one of the most violent camps on the planet again, is not too far from the Kakuma refugee camps. You know, and that is where there are armed guards surrounding these areas. And a lot of them depend on UNHCR, United Nations High Commission for Refugees. They bring in food for them, clothing, some small tiny stipends. You can't get official job, even if you're a medical doctor in Somalia, you can get, you know, practice your, you know,
Within the camp?
within the camps. It's not allowed. The Kenyan government will not allow you.
Wow.
And the Kenyan government is constantly saying, we are going to close this camp. Okay, so there's a constant negotiation between the Kenyan authorities and the UNHCR. These are the challenges that these people are facing.
Sure. Huh. And now, who ends up getting to come to the United States? What type of people are chosen? Are there any criteria?
It is random. You know, now we can say overwhelmingly look for more vulnerable populations, vulnerable groups, women. Overwhelmingly, majority will be women. You know, younger kids, and then maybe some older adults. And of course, if some of them are married, they are, you know, they will come in as a, you know, as a family. And so it's almost all of the group. But if you look at it, a lot of them will be women. These are the most vulnerable group. Some of them have already lost their husbands during the war. You know, so we bring in some of these people out there. You know, so all we need is just the State Department, not me, not my organization. It is always the State Department that goes around the world identifying at-risk groups.
Yeah.
And then they work with the VOLACs. We call them voluntary resettlement agencies. There are 9 of them across the country. A good number, of vast majority are all faith-based. So you hear USCCB, United States Catholic Conference of Bishops, the Lutherans, and the Episcopalian. They all have what we call a resettlement part of, you know, a resettlement agency or agencies across the country. So we work with the State Department. The State Department does all of the vetting.
Right.
Okay, give them the clearance, the pass, to say we can bring in this many people. And that is always stipulated by the Congress. Let's say the fiscal year starts from somewhere around October 1. Okay, and they will make a recommendation. Okay, we need 50,000 people, or we can welcome 50,000 people to America. That goes through the Congress, and then the president signs it later. It goes up and sometimes goes down. It has gone down over the past year. Last I checked was almost close to 50,000 people that came. You and I can say, my God, that's a big number. America, we have 330 million people in America, 50,000 people. Germany, 80 million people, close to 1 million refugees.
Mostly from Syria at this point?
Mostly from Syria and Afghanistan and Middle Eastern society. You see the difference here? So if you just use the number 50,000 people and say, oh my goodness, bringing 50,000 people compared to Europe, you know, just small Germany out there with 80 million people, they brought in close to 1 million people in their own country. People who cannot speak German, you know, and they are coming in with their own local languages with all of the challenges. So the Europeans are in a far more difficult situation compared to America.
Are they a little different? And at least from what I've read, a lot of men are going into Europe more than you were saying here, coming women and children.
Women and children, yes, indeed, because the trek, the journey is very hazardous, very, very risky. And these people are willing to sell anything and everything to make their way. It's a very dangerous process. You know, they wind their way from Syria through Greece or through Egypt, and then pay smugglers to smuggle them across the Mediterranean, or sometimes from Libya, go through over there, the Mediterranean into southern Italy or southern Spain or parts of Portugal out there, mostly Spain and Italy. So it's a very difficult, and that is why we see more men, finding their way into Western Europe. Out here, we are surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. It's extremely difficult,
right.
So you have to sit out there in the refugee camp for a year, 2 years, before you come in. So let's say the husband, the wife comes in, and then later say, oh, my husband is back there. And that will take another long time again for that husband. We call it family reunification, for them to come in. So it's a very interesting, difficult, very painful process. And but again, we always think they are liability. When they come in, what are we going to do with these people? But human beings are resilient. And I've worked with all the refugees. Vast majority of them come with absolutely no English. My primary job as the director of the program is to identify their strengths and look for also their own weakness. You don't speak English language, the first thing that I have to do is to find you an ESL, English as a second language class.
Right.
And number two, always people think, well, when they come in, they are going to be on food stamps forever. Not true. When you come in, yes, the federal government and do provide a little bit temporary assistance. You are welcoming someone to your own country, help them resettle. So I will find them decent accommodation and a nice bedroom or a decent house depending on the size of the family. Find you a job. It has to be ASAP. Okay, when I come in, I get your bio data. That's the way we call it. I look at the adults in the family, if they are healthy, and I say, well, I have to find you a job. Okay, within the first month. In fact, within the first few weeks of your arrival. So while they are navigating their way, understanding the system, I do a lot of cultural orientation about how the American system operates, what to do, what not to do, get you through the health department, make sure you are checked your health-wise before coming in. We make sure you are healthy before you come into America. And when you come in again, I still have to take you to the health department. They got to do an exhaustive, medical checkup again. Everything.
Second, third,
the
fourth
second, third
check.
again. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah.
And then the kids, for the younger kids, they start their immunization process again because we got to put them in the schools within 10 days. Okay, they got to be, except if it's summertime anyway, but if it's the fall semester, we got to make sure the kids are in school, parents who do not speak English language, attend ESL classes, and then I look for jobs. I don't care whether you speak English language or not. My own job is to look for companies that are willing to hire a refugee, okay, with limited English skills. And there are a lot of manufacturing companies. So we have experts in that area. We have a network of employers within the greater West Michigan who are willing to hire a refugee with English, in limited English. I don't care. It can be mopping. You got to get something to pay your bills.
Sure.
So the idea that you are going to be on welfare, not true. Okay, we got to find you something. And then number 2 or number 3 out there, if you have a problem with transportation, we are going to solve that problem. A good number of them don't know how to take the bus from point A to point B. I have a lot of volunteers. I have a staff, okay, who are willing to take, John from his apartment to Kentwood or to Walker or to Jennison, anywhere I can find a job. And at the same time, again, I have a group of volunteers again that are teaching him or her how to take the bus to his place of work, or her place of work, and back home again. So all of these things are it's overwhelming
I'm
for
sure.
someone coming in from Kakuma
Totally
that I just
different.
described to a more 21st century country. You have all of this thing going on at the same time again. But trust me, when I go back to Grand Rapids, let's say in the afternoon, I run into refugees. And I remember this person came here 10 years ago, 15 years ago, absolutely zero English. And I'm saying, how are you doing today? I see a car parked there, his own car, where I'm still working for the same organization. 10 years ago,
Wow.
12 years ago, they are still holding on to that job. And refugees are some of the most hardworking people that people don't know. They have lost a lot. They still have distant relatives in Kenya or maybe in other parts of the world.
So some of them are working to
They are
bring
working. They
more
have
family.
to either to support their families
Yeah.
out there.
Send money home or
send
bring-
home and then take care of themselves or buy a house here again or buy a decent car, take care of their
'Cause you're
families.
basically coming with nothing.
They're coming to absolutely nothing.
Now, what is the educational background of a lot of refugees that come here? I'm sure it varies.
It depends, where they are coming from. Some are fairly educated. Let's say you bring in a Syrian. Syria is a very literate society. I worked with Iraqis. Iraq, is a fairly, during the dictatorship of Saddam Hussein, anything is bad about Iraq, but they are fairly very educated.
I had when I was teaching in Detroit, I had a very good student, and he was a little older, and I went back and talked to him. I said, man, you're really doing great in this class. And I got talking to him. He was a physician,
Yes,
and he came here, but
Yeah.
his degree didn't transfer, I guess.
That
so
is
he's
a
starting
big
again.
issue. Yeah, they had to. Either can be a taxi driver, maybe Uber driver now. That is the new word
Right.
now. But they start. That is the most painful thing in working with refugees. I got a gentleman from Sudan. This guy was a diplomat. And I said, oh, I was in Belgium. And I said, well, what? I've seen the resume. I said, goodness, here is a guy who was a diplomat making thousands of dollars, okay, fairly decent salary by American definition,
Right.
lost everything, was sitting in a refugee camp somewhere in Cairo, Egypt, and I brought him. You can see the psychological stress. And I say, I'm not going to find you a job that will pay you what you used to get back there. I'm going to find you something that will help you pay the bills. I have a professor from Afghanistan, family of 10.
Wow.
9 kids or 10 kids. He was a professor there. And I brought him here, couldn't get him a house. It was just urgent. I had to go all the way to Kalamazoo, Michigan to get him a decent house. Who is a professor in there. I have a guy from Kenya, East Africa again, was also a professor of engineering. Then I have some other people that have never seen a computer in their lives, absolutely zero.
Right.
Okay, they are starting from scratch. They don't know how to turn on a light. They don't know how to flush a toilet. That is where my job kicks in now. The people that are educated, fairly easy. These are the people that I spend my time. I have a group of, how do you call it, volunteers. I have my staff. We get into their homes, teach them the basics, how to set their alarm clock, how to switch on that light. And then later, I always look for volunteers from local churches or from organizations, professionals. I say, this family needs financial planning. They need help with balancing their budget. These people need to learn how to drive. I have a group of women that will say, I will show them how to get to Maya, how to learn how to shop, how to use the stove. Within 6 months, within a year, they are up to speed. They are up and running. Sometimes I have worked with the GRCC, their nursing program. Okay, they will send in their nursing student to come in and volunteer to work with these young families.
And that's probably helpful for culturally.
It's a win-win situation for both. So they learn about these
experiences.
people out there. Yes, and I work with the professors, like a whole curriculum. I've worked with second-year medical students from Michigan State before the medical school started here. So they are coming not as medical students, but they're just as volunteers. You know, medical students are coming in from upper middle class.
Sure.
They don't know what Medicaid looks like. They don't know what is food stamps. They don't know all of these things. So I take them to refugees. I say, spend some time, spend an hour, just do exhaustive interview these people, who these people are, where they are coming from. So by the time now, then work with them through the system. Take them to St. Mary's on a medical appointment, take them to Spectrum, and sit there, not as a medical guru out there, just see some of the challenges that they face, medical interpreting. Okay, they are understanding the concept of date, time, appointment. Okay, and at the end of the semester, they come back, looked at all of the challenges. Their goal, their assignment was not only to identify the problems, but also to figure out solutions. So I have all of these things going on within West Michigan, all of these multiple, yes. So it's a lot of things, but my job is just to help these people get into the system, fit in as regular citizens, okay, and then learn to be on their own. We call that self-sufficiency.
Two questions. One, you said a lot of these are religious groups that are bringing people in.
Faith-based, yes.
Is there ever, an evangelical part of that where people are trying to convert them to be Christian if they're not?
That the answer should be no.
No.
And that is what I worked for a faith-based organization, and that is one thing. All our hires, all of our volunteers, when I go to volunteer, even to recruit volunteers, I go to churches and I tell them, X is coming from Afghanistan or from Somalia. They are Muslims. I want you to help them for who these people are, but not to try to change their faith. If they willingly choose so, fine, we do not. 99.9% of them will respect it.
Okay.
And my own organization is Catholic Charities. We have Muslims working for the organization. We have Buddhists working for the organization. It's just, we call it United Nations. All of us are coming from different backgrounds and all of these things, so it is not up to me to go and change someone's faith. So we do emphasize that.
Okay.
So 99.9% of them, everything so far has worked very well.
And the last thing, if people want to help, how or get involved in this, volunteer, how would they go about doing so?
For you volunteers out here, there are two great organizations in Grand Rapids right now. Catholic Charities has bailed out of refugee resettlement, the one that I used to work with and work for. And now we have Bethany Christian Services, one of the biggest organizations out there, fine organization. I know the leadership, I'm in touch with them. And it used to be Lutheran Social Services, now they call it Samaritans. And we can Google these names, call them. People are always looking for volunteers, and I tell my students, you all speak excellent English, go there, volunteer your time. One of my students went there, and I showed him exactly what to do. He signed up, and he's now volunteering, teaching people English. You don't have to have an English degree. You already speak it. You already know it. You are way better than that kid that is coming from that small, interesting refugee camp out.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Papa.
It's a pleasure.
Very
Thank
informative,
you so
and thanks for all the work you do.
Oh, thank you for wonderful work you are doing on our campus here. We hope to do more again.
And thank you, everyone, for watching Timely Topics. We've been talking to Papa Njai. He is an instructor of geography and anthropology here at the community college, and we've been talking about refugees in West Michigan and throughout the world. Until next time, have a great day.